And I know what you definitely did have an issue with was the game that Greg Popovich's wife passed away. That the next 2 games after that, he wasn't on the bench either, and he wasn't. And I know that he spoke to Pop on the phone and somehow got this, blessing to not have to be there. That's what affected me.
But here's the thing that people need to understand with the Supermax contract. This is not a situation where Kawhi Leonard could sign it and then demand a trade. If you sign someone to the Supermax, you cannot trade them for a full year. So if he signs it, he is saying, I am back with the Spurs. I am re-upping with the Spurs. I would be nervous if that rule wasn't in place. That Kawhi would say, yeah, I'll sign, and then immediately say, trade me, I'm not coming in. But that's not available to him. So, listen, he is one of the 8 best players in the sport, even with the concerns about the injury. He is, without question, one of the 8 best players in the sport. He finished higher than LeBron in the MVP voting just a year ago. You can't not retain him if you have the opportunity to retain him.
And I could care less if he went to the game. You know what it meant? It meant zero. All right? They were a bad team. All right? The season was over with. He communicated with the coach. Him and the coach do have a relationship. Him and the coach probably have the only thing that's going to be able to potentially salvage the relationship, the communication that they've had with each other. There's no one else in the organization that can talk to Kawhi or try to build a reason with Kawhi. So him being in New York City, working with his doctors, rehabbing was the best thing for him. And it's better for the organization that he's getting healthy compared to sitting on the bench there with Alfred. What type of support? What was he going to do? Was he going to help him?
Well, whatever type of support it is, it's the type of support every other injured player in the playoffs is offering their team.
Okay, but so what?
You can say it doesn't matter. I get that.
It really doesn't matter.
Okay,
you think that's going to affect them offering him $200 million with Kawhi's resume? Because what's stronger, Kawhi's resume or him not being on the bench the last 4 games of the season?
I said I would offer him the money, but I can still say I think that, just like if Kyrie was not showing up to these playoff games, I would think it was a bad look, just like if Boogie wasn't showing up to the Pelicans.
Right, but in the real world, it doesn't matter, though. Like, it doesn't matter that the guy's not there on the bench. Is it going to help the team? No. It is because as a fan, we want the guy there. In the locker room, it doesn't matter. To the players, it doesn't matter.
But whether it helps the team or not, would you say it affected the team?
No, it didn't affect the team. They were a bad team.
Right, but we did hear, guys, Manu, we heard Tony Parker talk about how much they...
You know the reason why it didn't? Because they can't play. They can't play. Did you hear what his teammates said about him? Did you hear what Tony Parker said? His injury was so much worse than... Oh, yes, so I'm supposed to come there and support them? No, absolutely. It don't work that way. It don't work that way. You can say whatever you want about me when I'm out of town, and now all of a sudden you're getting ready to get your doors blown off. You want me to come support you? No, that's not getting ready to happen. All right? Ginobili's career is over with. Tony Parker, he says he wants to play. He's only a shell of himself. The Spurs better be worried about Kawhi, because the only way they're going to put another banner in the rafters, which is important to them, is if they have Kawhi Leonard.
All right, let's get back to the Celtics now. And I get it. Everything's just better at home. Your bed, your routine, your family. Road families are weird. Nobody knows about road woes more than the Celtics. No one. They're now just 1-6 in road playoff games this year. Put that up against the 9-0 home playoff record. Well, the series with the Cavs now tied at 2, shifts back to Boston tomorrow night. Here's head coach Brad Stevens.
Best 2 out of 3 to go to the NBA Finals. Doesn't get better than that. I mean, ultimately, anybody that didn't think this was going to be tough, everything is tough. And, in this deal, it's a blast to have to grit your teeth, get up off the mat, and go after it again. That's part of it. That's part of what makes these guys on both sides special. It's part of what makes the Western Conference team special. They're able to do it. They're able to block out everything that doesn't matter and go compete. And that's what we'll go do.
All right, Chris, the Celtics playoff woes, is that a sign of this team being young and inexperienced, the fact that they can't seem to put it all together when they're away from Boston?
It's a sign of a couple things. It's a sign of a young team because it's harder to play on the road. And it's a sign that absent of a superstar. Young guys, Jaylen Brown's not ready to be in the NBA superstar category. Tatum is not ready to be in that. Rozier is a backup player, could be a starting point guard somewhere, but that superstar status to be able to put out a fire when the team goes on a run, to be able to make a high energy play, either a slam dunk, knock down a three, to be able to take energy out from being on the road when a home crowd is taking over the game. They don't have that. It's not a problem. They got two guys that are capable of doing that, and Gordon Hayward and Kyrie. They're injured. Like this is a team that is trying to get somewhere without their star players. So it makes sense that they would struggle on the road. We thought that the young players would struggle at home and on the road. At home, they played magnificent. And they played magnificent, their top three scorers going from the regular season to the postseason. But when you're playing against the best teams, when you're in Eastern Conference Final, Western Conference Final, these types of things can be exploited because the scouts look at your weaknesses and they target them. And you start to see more evidence of what you're weak at, what you're lacking. And that's what we're seeing with the Celtics.
And Jenna, I know you want Danny Ainge to watch the show. I don't know that he does, but Brad Stevens might, because you made a point last week that Brad Stevens then echoed over the weekend, which was this was the best road team in the Eastern Conference during the regular season, and now they can't do it during the playoffs. And the answer to that is, well, during the regular season, for 65 of those games, you had the superstar. You had Kyrie Irving. Like, you can't look at what they did on the road during the regular season and say, why can't they do it on the road in the playoffs? For a number of reasons, but one of them is it's not the same team that you were dealing with. But the other aspect of this, and this, go ahead.
But it's also not the same stage. So if you want to say there's no superstar, there's also not the, if you want to use, for lack of a better term, pressure of playing in the Eastern Conference Finals where there's a lot on the line and it can end your season. You also don't have that during the regular season.
Right, but I mean, there was less pressure, if you will, in the first round against Milwaukee. And they got beat down in the 3 games in Milwaukee, a team that is poorly coached, a team that has, much like the Cavs series, best player in the series on Milwaukee. Next 3 or 4 best guys are on Boston.
Yeah.
But the thing that's concerning, if I'm Brad Stevens or if I'm a Celtics fan, is I don't mind so much that at home we're scoring 112 points a game and on the road we're scoring 99 points a game. I care tremendously that at home we're allowing 101 and on the road we're allowing 111. Look, your defense should travel better than that. One of the reasons the Celtics in the regular season were, aside from Kyrie Irving, a good road team, is they had the #1 defense in the NBA. You talk all the time. Role player shots aren't going to go in as much. Young player shots aren't going to go in as much away from home. That shouldn't affect these 2 games in Cleveland. They have been disorganized defensively. They're always trying hard, but they're not communicating as well. That's what's concerning for Boston.
Man, Al Horford, their center. Like, man, he played great. First round, great. Second round, great. You talk about potentially him and Brad Stevens being the MVP of this team. Game 1 and Game 2. But since Tristan Thompson's come in, he's shooting 27% against Tristan Thompson. That's a real thing. You shouldn't have a veteran player with a max contract on the road struggling the way he is. But he is your go-to guy. He's your go-to leader when you don't have Gordon Hayward, when you don't have Kyrie. So not having those guys shows up more on the road than it would in home games.
And you mentioned Tristan Thompson, and I've been president of the Brad Stevens fan club, or maybe vice president to our friend Chris Mannix. Ty Lue made the adjustment. Ty Lue said, I'm inserting Tristan Thompson in the starting lineup. People were curious about that.
It works.
Brad Stevens has not readjusted from there. So if I'm going to elevate you to one of, if not the best coach in basketball, you got to have a good counterpunch to lose counterpunch.
Yeah, to be the best coach in the NBA, which you said.
Right, absolutely.
You said he was.
I said he's the best coach of the NBA.
It's time to make some adjustments.
He thought he made that adjustment. Al Horford came out with a little bit more energy than he did last game, but it still wasn't enough.
Tristan Thompson's a tough matchup for him.
All right, coming up, should we be concerned about Tom Brady? We'll let you know why next. First things first.